thank you for the opportunity to speak with you for a minute today. Can I ask, how many of you out there are children of divorce? You may not have thought of yourself as that before. How many? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, there are a lot of us here. I am, let's just say I'm more than 40, okay? So I don't have to divulge my age. But for more than 40 years, I've tried very hard to get past my parents' divorce, to go through counseling and to go through the process of healing, because when I was 7, my mother asked my father for a divorce, and on that day I lost my family. But what I didn't count on is that same day I also lost my father. And I can tell you firsthand that every other week on Sunday is not enough time to spend with your father. What happens to a young girl when her father is taken away is that there is a hole in your heart that develops for that lost parent. And as much as you don't want to constantly think about that lost parent, it becomes somewhat of a cruel obsession, if you will. A deficit, a hole that you can't fill unless you have substitute time with that parent. So when I was 12, I was lucky enough to go before a judge who listened to me to determine if I was old enough to have a say or to be part of the decision of who I should live with. I actually told my mom I didn't want to live with her anymore, and I went before this judge who listened to me for 2.5 hours, talk with him about how I felt about the loss of my father. And he gave me the opportunity to move to live with my father. And what was funny is then all of a sudden, guess what? I had a deficit for my mother. You know, is there no happy ending here? Well, there really wasn't, because I was living a split life. I was either with my mother or I was with my father, but I was always having a miss for one or the other. And yes, it did balance me out in some ways to have that lost time with my father, but the bottom line is how can it be different for children now? Well, the most important thing is that we need to start seeing ourselves as children of divorce who have gone through this and know how it can be different. And we need to start speaking for those 7-year-olds that we see, and for these young children that are going to go through the same thing that we went through if we don't step up and do something about it. So what can we do? Well, we can actually change, and we can speak to our legislators, and we can change the perception of what it's like to be a child who is totally missing a parent, whether it be dad or mother. It's not okay. It's not okay for you to come into my home and to take one of my parents away from me. It's just not. I mean, it's not. It has to be a violation of our Constitution. I mean, this is the American flag. We should be protected against this kind of thing. I was born with a mother and a father. Who gives them the right? I don't care if it's a judge or if it's the laws. How did this right ever come about? Well, I don't think it's just, and neither does the Alabama Family Rights Association. So looking at this differently and taking some of the legal arguments that ALFRA has developed through talking with constitutional attorneys and others, and fighting this fight in a different way is what we're trying to do and what we're about. But fundamentally, we're about a child having both parents, not winning your children from the other parent and continuing this feud and fight forever, but stopping the fight and saying, hey, we decided to have this child together, and now we get to raise the child together, and there has to be a truce here for the sake of our child, so our child can have both parents. Thank you for hearing me.
What can we do differently here in Alabama? It's imperative that we continue our efforts to educate those that make the laws. It's important that we continue to speak and be the voices for our children here in Alabama. I'm proud to stand here today and let you know that we are making a difference here in Alabama. Our governor and 30 other mayors throughout the state of Alabama signed a proclamation declaring this day, the first time ever in Alabama, as the day to acknowledge a child need a mom and a dad. It is wrong to alienate a child from one parent. It's wrong to alienate a child from the entire family. I'd like to ask Ms. Karen Jones if she would come up and read the proclamation that many of the mayors throughout the state of Alabama have declared and proclaimed for today.
Good afternoon. The City of Montgomery, Alabama, Office of the Mayor, Proclamation. Whereas alienating behaviors are often found in high conflict divorce and custody situations. Whereas speaking negatively about a parent to or in front of a child, interfering with communication and visitation, and discussing inappropriate information with the child, such as details of the separation, court proceedings, or financial matters, can not only destroy the bond between a loving parent and child, but can cause mental and emotional harm to the child. And whereas parental alienation takes advantage of the suggestibility and dependency of children, and whereas parental alienation deprives children of their right to love and be loved by both parents, and whereas parental alienation is considered harmful to children as the alienating tactics are confusing, frightening, and rob children of their sense of security. And whereas professionals agree that the problem of parental alienation is damaging to children and can affect them into adulthood with tragic consequences. And whereas there are more than 2.4 million divorced North Americans, and in 2010 there were more than 21,000 divorced Alabamians, including the parents of more than 1 million children under the age of 18, with nearly as many unmarried couples. In 2010, there were more than 25,000 unwed births with children separating. And whereas with awareness comes education and understanding, and the power to stop the abuse of innocent children caught in the crossfire of the people they love. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. And whereas love does no harm to its neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law. This year, organizers are doing something special by asking everyone to take 10 minutes out of their day at noon, April 25th, 2012, anywhere in the state, and blow soap bubbles representing love. Now therefore, Todd Strange, Mayor of the City of Montgomery, do hereby proclaim April 22nd through 28th, 2012 as Parental Alienation Prevention Week, and do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2012 as Parental Alienation Awareness Day. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you for taking the time out to share that with us. I just want to remind everyone that we had the governor sign the proclamation, and also over 30 mayors throughout the state of Alabama, from Huntsville, Florence, all the way down to Mobile, south of Mobile. So I just want to thank those leaders for taking a stance for our kids. Once again, our kids do not have a voice. We have to be their voice. Well, there's still work to be done. I'd like to share something with you that was really very disturbing. I had one city that refused to participate in the proclamation. So we still have a lot of work to do. Their response was the state legislators told them not to sign the proclamation. I think the right thing for me to do is address that issue with that particular city. So next year, guess what? We're not going away. And I'd like to introduce you a young lady here. The question is, when one parent attempts to alienate a child from the other parent, what do that look like? What effect does it have on our kids? Miss MacKenzie, I'd like to ask you to come up and share your story with us, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon. I would like to read you a letter. Dear Mom, I don't want to talk to you ever again. I can't believe you don't want me as your child. I hate you for that. No mom can be as mean as you. I hope you're not mad at me. You brought this on yourself, and I hate what you're trying to do to help me too. Your never wanted to be daughter, MacKenzie. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of many children in our state affected by parental alienation. Not only have I witnessed this type of abuse, but I've lived it. I wrote that letter 4 years ago when I was just 11 years old. In October of 2007, my brother and I were abruptly removed from my mother's custody, at which time she was arrested. All this happened because of a plan designed by my own father. I didn't understand what was happening at the time, but now I realize that I was being manipulated and controlled into hating my mother for no reason. Because of this, I lost 3 irreplaceable years with her in my life. My mom never gave up. She never lost faith that God and righteousness would prevail. And most of all, she never stopped loving us. And during this time, DHR didn't even notice the abuse. No one did. The wrong decisions were made and we were placed in the care of the very person who was our abuser. You would think that the agencies who are supposed to be qualified to recognize all types of abuse would not have missed this, but they did. I would like to challenge our legislature to please, for the sake of all alienated children and parents out there, pass the necessary laws that require the proper training for those in our family court systems and the agencies that protect children. No child should ever have to suffer from this horrible form of abuse. Please help put a stop to parental alienation. My name is MacKenzie Smitherman, and I'm the face of parental alienation. Thank you.
I definitely want to thank you for sharing that story with us. As Karen was sharing with us, we had, in 2010, we had over 21,000 divorces here in Alabama. We had an additional over 25,000 unwed births. In 1 year, we have almost 500,000 MacKenzies out there. So the question is, how many in 2012? How many more will it take before our legislators take action? What is the impact on our kids? What is the impact on our society? What is the impact on our economy? I'd like to ask our Director of Governmental, I'd like to ask our Director of Communication Research Department to come up and share about what's the current impact on the kids here in Alabama when one child is alienated from another child. Mark, thank you for sharing.
We know that the statistics I'm about to read you came from Alabama DHR and from the U.S. Health and Human Services website that says that Alabama has the 4th highest divorce rate in the country. We know that we are 2nd in U.S. deaths related to domestic violence. We know that 90% of our homeless and runaway children come from one parent. We know that 85% of our youths are sitting in prison. We know that 80% of rapists are motivated by displaced anger. That 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse, or 75% of adolescent patients are in chemical abuse centers. 71% of pregnant teenagers. We have 71% of high school dropouts. And we have 63% of our youth suicides all come from single parent homes.
I do. Princess, why you look? Princess, don't stick.